नमस्ते एवरीवन, बोलिए सत्य सनातन वैदिक धर्म की जय। कैसे हैं आप लोग? सॉरी आज लेट हो गया, आई एम रियली सॉरी। कुछ काम आ जाता है बीच में एंड देन यू गेट डिलेड। कोई बात नहीं। अब हम इन्फरेंसेस की बात करेंगे। हम मीमांसा फिलॉसफी में कल साइकोलॉजी ऑफ इल्यूजन के बारे में बात किया था। उसमें बस ये बताया था कि अगर हम किसी चीज़ को देख पा रहे हैं एंड दैट इज इल्यूजनरी, वो सच नहीं है, तो हम उसको कैसे आइडेंटिफाई करेंगे। एंड दैट वाज द वाद एंड संवाद बिटवीन द टू सेक्ट्स which is कुमारिला, प्रभाकरा एंड मीमांसा एंड न्याया। इन तीनों में क्या डिफरेंसेस थे वो सारा बताया गया था। Now we are talking about inferences. Sabara says that when a certain fixed or permanent relation has been known to exist between the two things, we can have the idea of one thing when the other one is perceived, and this kind of knowledge is called inference. Kumarila, on the basis of this, tries to show that inference is only possible when we notice that in a large number of cases, two things, smoke and fire, subsist together in a third thing, that is, kitchen, in some independent relation, that is, when their coexistence does not depend upon any other eliminable condition or factor. It is also necessary that the two things, smoke and fire, coexist in a third thing, should be so experienced that all cases of existence of one thing should also be the case involving the existence of other. But the case of the existence of one thing, example fire, though including all the cases of existence of the other smoke, may have yet a more extensive sphere where the latter smoke may not exist. इसमें दो पॉइंट्स बताए गए हैं। कुमार लगा ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ दिस इन्फरेंस। सबरा पहले कहते हैं कि certain when a certain fixed or permanent relation has been known to exist between two things, we can have idea of one thing when the other one is perceived. यानी कि अगर हमें ये पता है कि आग होगी तो धुआं होगा और धुआं होगा तो आग होगी, तो अगर हमें ये परसेप्शन है और ये चीज़ें फिक्स्ड हैं, तो ऑब्वियसली जब बाद में धुआं दिखेगा तो आग भी होगी। उसमें कुमारिला कहते हैं कि पहले तो आपकी तीनों कंडीशन सेम होनी चाहिए। वन कंडीशन इज दैट वेन एवर यू आर सीइंग के किचन है, किचन में आग जल रही है, आग जलने से धुआं निकल रहा है, राइट। तो उसमें तीन चीज़ें कॉमन है। वन इज द इन्फ्लेमेबल सब्सटेंस, जो किचन में गैस होगी या कुछ होगा। जैसे कई बार आप राइट्स एंड ऑल सब चीज़ों में देखते हैं कि घर जब जलाया जाता है तो उस केस में किचन इज द मोस्ट वल्नरेबल, राइट। नाउ उसके साथ आग होगी तभी यू विल हैव सर्टेन पोल्यूशन और धुआं धुआं तभी निकलेगा। वैसे ही अगर जंगल की बात करेंगे तो जंगल में पहले तो आग और धुआं दोनों होने चाहिए। वो कह रहे हैं कि धुआं नहीं होता, कई बार आग जलती है तो हीटअप होता है ना वो, बिकॉज इट शुड हैव ऑक्सीजन एज वेल। सिमिलरली अगर धुआं है तो कई बार आग भी नहीं हो सकती, क्या पता वैसे कोई धुआं उड़ा रहा है, राइट। आर्टिफिशियल गैसेस भी तो आती है ना, तो उस टाइम पे दीज वर द काइंड ऑफ कमेंट्रीज दैट यूज्ड टू हैपन। तो उसमें ये बोला गया है, it is also necessary that the two things, smoke and fire, coexist in the third thing, should be so experienced that all cases of the existence of one thing should also be cases involving the existence of the other. But the cases of the existence of one thing, example fire, though including all the cases of the existence of the other, smoke, may have yet a more extensive sphere where the latter smoke may not exist. When once a permanent relation, whether it be a case of coexistence, as in the case of contiguity of the constellation of Kritika with Rohini, where the rise of the former, the earlier rise of the latter may be inferred, as a case of identity, as in the relation between the genus and the genus and the species, a case of the cause and effect or otherwise between two things, And the third thing, which has been apprehended in a large number of cases, is perceived. They fuse together in mind as forming one whole. तो अगर आप genus and species दोनों को देखें तो they fuse together as one, right? इसे हम थोड़ा और डिटेल में जानते हैं. When one's a permanent relation, whether it is a case of coexistence कि दो चीज़ें coexist कर रही हैं, जैसे I am a human, I am a male, तो I am a coexisting, तो आप इस चीज़ों को अलग अलग नहीं सीधा ही देखते हैं, right? As in the case of contiguity, in the constellation of Kritika with Rohini, where by the rise of former, यानी कि with the rise of Kritika, the early rise of the latter may be inferred, यानी कि रोहिणी भी rise करेगा. Or a case of identity, as in relationship between the genus and its species. Or a case of cause and effect, कि ज़्यादा बारिश आएगी तो बाढ़ आ जाएगा, right? तो हम इस चीज़ को इन टर्म्स पे देख रहे हैं कि ये होगा तो ये होगा. Or otherwise between two things and a third thing which has been apprehended in a large number of cases is perceived. They fuse together in the mind as forming one whole, and as a result of that, when the existence of the one, example smoke, and a thing, hill, is noticed, we can infer the existence of the thing, hill, with its counterpart, fire. In all such cases, the thing, example fire, which has a sphere extending beyond that in which the other smoke can exist, is called gamya and vyapak, and the other example smoke, vyapya and gamaka. And it is only by the presence of gamaka in a thing, example hill, the paksha, that the other counterpart, the gamya, fire, may be inferred. ये टर्म्स आपकी यूजीसी नेट में अटक सकते हैं कि गम्य फायर को बोला गया है, स्मोक व्याप्य, राइट, एंड स्फेयर एक्सटेंडिंग बियॉन्ड द फायर, इसको गम्य व्यापक का बोला गया है. तो व्याप्य स्मोक आप याद रख सकते हैं, गम्य फायर को याद रख सकते हैं, राइट. दीज आर सम टर्म्स विच जो संस्कृत से ज्यो के त्यों उठाए गए हैं, and the author has published it here. The general proposition, universal coexistence of the Gamaka with the Gamya. Example, whether there is smoke with the fire. So Gamak and Gamya. Gamak is smoke and Gamya is fire. No, Gamak is smoke and Gamya is fire. ठीक है. Cannot be the cause of inference, for it is itself a cause of inference. Inference involves the memory of a permanent relation subsisting between two things. Example, smoke and fire. In a third thing, kitchen. Third thing, kitchen. Third thing, आप ये बोल सकते हैं कि place, कहाँ पे ये चीज़ घटना घट रही है, right? But the third thing is remembered only in general way, that the coexisting thing must have a place where they are found associated. It is by virtue of such memory that the direct perception of a basis, hill, with the gamaka, thing, example smoke, in it would naturally bring to my mind that the same hill, same basis, hill, must contain the gamya, fire also. Every case of inference thus proceeds directly from the perception and not from any universal general proposition. Kumarila holds that the inference gives us the minor as associated with the major and not of the major alone, and of the fiery mountain and not of the fire. Thus, inference gives us a new knowledge, for though it was known in a general way that the possessor of smoke is the possessor of fire, yet the case of a mountain was not anticipated, and the inference of the fiery mountain is thus a distinctly new knowledge. It is important to note that it is not unlikely that Kumarila was indebted to Dinnaga for this. For Dinnaga's main contention is that it is not fire, nor the connection between it and the hill, but it is the fairy hill that is inferred, or for otherwise inference would give us no new knowledge. तो इसमें हिल की नॉर्मल हिल की बात नहीं की गई है, इसमें बस एक फेरी हिल की बात की गई है जिसमें फायर है, धुआं उठ रहा है, राइट. बादल भी हो सकते हैं, मिस्टेक भी तो हो सकती है देखने में. It should also be noted that in forming the notion of permanent relation between two things, a third thing in which these two subsist is always remembered. And for the connection of this permanent relation, it is enough that in the large number of cases where the concomitance was noted, there was no knowledge in any case where the concomitance failed. It is not indispensable that the negative instances in which the absence of Gamya and Vyapaka was marked by an absence of the Gammaka or Vyapya should also be noted, for the knowledge of such a negative relation is not indispensable for the forming of the notion of a permanent relation. Kumarila strongly opposes a Buddhist view that concomitance Vyapti is ascertained only by the negative instance and not by the positive one. The experience of a large number of particular cases in which any two things were found to coexist together in another thing in some relation associated with the non perception of any case of failure creates an expectancy in us of inferring the presence of Gamya in the thing in which the Gamaka is perceived to exist in exactly the same relation. Kumarila strongly opposes a Buddhist view that concomitance, Vyapti, is ascertained only by negative instances and not by positive instances. हम कई बार एक्टिविटीज़ को नेगेटिव एंड पॉजिटिव दोनों इंस्टेंसेस में देखते हैं कि अगर ये होगा तो ये होगा. हम ये भी तो देख सकते हैं कि अगर धुआं नहीं है तो आग भी नहीं लगी होगी. हम ये भी देख रहे हैं कि धुआं है तो आग भी लगी होगी, राइट. इस कंटेक्स्ट में बताया गया, विच इज एक्सप्लेन्ड बिफोर एज वेल. In other cases where the circle of the existence of the Gamya coincides with the circle of existence of the Gammaka, each of them becomes a Gammaka for the other. It is clear that this form of inference not only excludes all cases of cause and effect of genus and species, but also all cases of coexistence as well. In those cases where the circle of coexistence of Gamya, Gamya क्या था? Where the smoke or there is fire, यानी कि एक place exist coincides with the circle of existence of Gammaka. Hill, तो यानी कि place, each of them becomes Gammaka for the other. यानी कि अगर किचन में आग लगी है तो वैसे ही कुछ चीज़ों को देख के आप ये इन्फर कर पाएंगे कि हाँ ये आग लगी हुई है. वैसे ही अगर आप गम्मका वही फायर, अगर हिल दूसरी भी हो एंड देयर इज अ फायर, then also you will be able to infer okay there is a fire in that, right. जस्ट ये मतलब है कि हम हर एक चीज़ को रिलेट कर पाएंगे. The question arises that if no inference is possible without a memory of the permanent relation, is not the self-validity of inference destroyed on the account? For memory is not regarded as self-valid. To this, Kumarila's answer is that memory is not valid, but it has not the status of pramana, as it does not bring to us a new knowledge. But inference involves the acquirement of new knowledge. In this, that though the coexistence of two things in another was known in a number of cases, yet in the present case, a new case of existence of Gamya in a thing is known from the perception of the coexistence of the gammaka, and this knowledge is gained by a means which is not perception, for it is only the gammaka that is seen and not the gamya. टेक्निकली गम्य का जो प्लेस है वो दिखता है, गम्य नहीं दिखता. इफ द गम्य इज ऑल्सो सीन इट इज नो इन्फरेंस एट ऑल. फायर, अगर हाँ तो वो प्रत्यक्ष हो गया ना, राइट. अगर हमें फायर दिख ही गई, गम्य अगर हमें दिख ही गया तो फिर वो तो प्रत्यक्ष हो गया, उसमें इन्फरेंस की जरूरत नहीं है. इन्फरेंस तभी जरूरत होती है अगर फायर हमें दिख नहीं रही है. अगर हमें सिर्फ धुआं दिख रहा है, अगर सिर्फ धुआं दिख रहा है, फायर नहीं दिख रही है, then you need an inference. There are two kinds of anumana according to Kumarila: प्रत्यक्षतो दृष्टा संबंध एंड सामान्यतो दृष्ट संबंध. तो ये एग्जाम्पल ये आपके उसमें यूजीसी नेट में आता है, बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट रहता है कि प्रत्यक्ष सतो दृष्टा संबंध एंड सामान्यतो दृष्टा संबंध. द फॉर्मर यानी कि प्रत्यक्षतो दृष्टा संबंध is that kind of inference where the permanent relation between the two concrete things, as in the case of smoke and fire, it has been noticed. यानी कि किचन में आपने किचन में देखा कि भैया जहाँ आगे वहाँ धुआं है, तो वो नोटिस हो रहा है. The latter यानी कि सामान्य तो दृष्टा संबंधा is that kind of inference where the permanent relation is observed not between two concrete things but between two general notions, as in the case of movement and change of place. Example, now the perceived cases where there is change of place, where there is also motion involved with it. So from the change of place of the sun, its motion is inferred, and it is held that this general notion is directly perceived like all universals. Prabhakara recognizes the need of forming the notion of permanent relation, but he does not lay any stress on the fact that this permanent relation between two things, fire and smoke, is taken in connection with the third thing in which they both subsist. He says that the notion of the permanent relation between two things is the main point, whereas in all other associations of time and place, the things in which these two subsist together are taken only as adjuncts to qualify the two things. Example, fire and smoke. It is also necessary to recognize the fact that though the concomitance of smoke in fire is only conditional, the concomitance of fire in smoke is unconditional and absolute. On the object of the means of assuring oneself that there is no condition, upadhi, which may vitiate the inference, Prabhakar has nothing new to tell us. He says that where even after careful inquiry in a large number of cases, the conditions cannot be discovered, we must say it is not existing. यानी कि जब conditions हम discover ही नहीं कर पा रहे, we can say it is non-existing. Is taken he says okay, Prabhakar recognizes the need of forming the notion of permanent relation, but he does not lay any stress on the fact that this permanent relation between two things, fire and smoke, is taken in connection with the third thing in which they both subsist. यानी कि किचन होगा, किचन में फायर होगा या गैस होगी, वुड होगा, तो उस टाइम पे वुड चलता था तो वुड होगा, कोयला होगा, राइट. अगर आग जलना यूजुअली नहीं बोलते हैं, अगर आप कोयले से अपना खाना बना रहे हैं मिट्टी के बर्तन में, तो वो आप जब फूंक मारेंगे आग होगा तो धुआं भी निकलेगा ना, तो उस केस में है, तो एयर भी तो होगी, राइट. He says that the notion of permanent relationship between two things is the main point, whereas in all other associations of time and place, the thing in which the two subsist together and taken only as adjuncts to qualify the other two things, that is fire and smoke, It is also necessary to recognize the fact that though the concomitance of smoke is fire, in fire is only conditional, the concomitance of fire in smoke is unconditional. यानी कि जब स्मोक होगा तो फायर भी होगा, ये अनकंडीशनल है। मैंने जब धुआं बिना आग के बताया था इन अ सेंस कि कुछ रिएक्शन तो इंटरनली हुआ होगा, हम आग दिखा नहीं रहे हैं, बट अगर हम जैसे धुआं उड़ा रहे हैं कुछ कर रहे हैं तो कहीं ना कहीं तो हीट जनरेशन से वो धुआं बना होगा, एंड दैट इज व्हाई इट इज शोइंग इट एज स्मोक, राइट। तो जो concomitance of fire in smoke है is unconditional and absolute. When such a conviction is firmly rooted in the mind that the concept of the presence of smoke involves the concept of the presence of fire, the inference of fire is made as soon as any smoke is seen. Prabhakara counts separately the fallacies of the minor paksha bhasha and enunciation pratigya bhasha, and of the example drishtanta bhasha. फॉलिसीज को देखते हैं, फॉलिसीज ऑफ द माइनर पक्ष भाषा, राइट, इनंसिएशन प्रतिज्ञा भाषा, एंड ऑफ द एग्जाम्पल दृष्टांत भाषा। यहाँ पे एग्जाम्पल ही गलत दे रहे हैं, राइट, along with the fallacies of the middle, and seems to indicate the Mimamsa logic was not altogether free from Buddhist influence. The cognition of smoke includes within itself the cognition of fire also, and thus there would be nothing left unknown to be recognized by the inferential cognition. But this objection has little force with Prabhakar, and he does not admit that a praman should necessarily bring us any new knowledge, for praman is simply defined as apprehension. So, though the inferential cognition always pertains to things already known, it is yet regarded to him by a praman, since it is any case no doubt or an apprehension. Upaman and Arthapatti. Upamanam, analogy, is accepted by Mimamsa in a sense which is different from that in which Nyaya took it. The man who has seen a cow goes to the forest and see a wild ox, Gavaya, and apprehends the similarity of the Gavaya with the go, and then cognizes the similarity of the go, which is not within the limits of his perception then, with the Gavaya. The cognition of this similarity of Gavaya with the go, as it follows directly from the perception of similarity of the go in the Gavaya, is called Upamana. इसको आप ऐसे समझ सकते हैं कि जब आप जंगल जा रहे हैं तो आपने जाते समय गाय देखी, आपने जस्ट उसे देख लिया एंड यू आइडेंटिफाइड ओके इट्स अ काउ। बट अगर आप जंगल में जाते हैं तो आपने गवाया देखा, यानी कि वाइल्ड ऑक्स देखे, तो आपको उसकी शेप एंड ऑल कुछ इन्फर कर पाओगे कि हाँ ये जनस सेम होगा, लेकिन वो काउ नहीं है, इट इज़ गवाया ऑक्स, तो आप फाइंड आउट कर पाओगे। बट क्योंकि आपको थोड़ा सा कॉग्निशन था कि हाउ काउ लुक्ड लाइक, then only you find out, okay, how if cow looked like this, then how will the ox is looking, right? It is regarded as a separate pramana because by it we can apprehend the similarity existing in the thing which is not perceived at the moment. It is not mere remembrance, for at the time the go was seen, the gavaya was not seen, and hence the similarity was not seen. And what was not seen could not be remembered. The difference of Prabhakar and Kumarila on this point is that while the latter regards similarity as only a quality consisting in the fact of more than an object, while the same set of qualities the former regards as a distinct category. Arthapatti implication is a new praman which is admitted by the Mimamsa. Arthapatti implication is a new praman which is admitted by Mimamsa. Thus, when we know that person Devadatta is alive and perceive that he is not in the house, we cannot reconcile these two facts, whereas his remaining alive or his not being in the house without presuming his existence somewhere outside the house. And this method of cognition of existence of Devdatta outside the house is called Arthapatti, presumption or implication. जैसे जैसे आप कहीं किसी को देखने जा रहे हैं एंड वो इंसान आपको कल मिला था एंड ही वाज कम्प्लीटली टोटली फाइन. जब आप उससे मिलने जाते हैं, आप उनसे मिलते हैं, ग्रीट करते हैं, आप उन्हें एडवाइस करते हैं, तो उस केस में at that time you are seeing, okay, these are the things that are happening and how you are cognizing कि हाँ वो इंसान जिंदा है लेकिन घर पे नहीं है, तो वो at that moment घर पे नहीं है लेकिन बाहर तो हो सकता है, तो that is अर्थपत्ति. The exact psychological analysis of the mind of this Arthapatti cognition is a matter on which Prabhakar and Kumarila disagree. Prabhakar holds that when a man knows that Devadatta habitually resides in his house but yet does not find him there, his knowledge that Devadatta is living, though acquired previously by some other means of proof, is made doubtful. And the cause of this doubt is that he does not find Devdatta at his house. The absence of Devdatta from the house is not the cause of implication, but it throws into doubt the very existence of Devdatta and thus forces us to imagine that Devdatta must remain somewhere outside. That can only be found by implication without the hypothesis of which the doubt cannot be removed. The mere absence of Devadatta from the house is not enough for making the presumption that he is outside the house, for he might be also be dead. But I know that Devadatta was living also, that he was not at home. This perception of his absence from the home creates a doubt as regards my first knowledge that he is living. And it is for the removal of this doubt that there creeps in the presumption that he must be living somewhere else. The perception of the absence of Devadatta. Devadatta just takes example of any human liya gaya, right? uh, uh, Through the intermediate link of a doubt passes into the notion of presumption that he must then remain somewhere else. In inference, there is no element of doubt, for it is only when the smoke is perceived to exist. Beyond the least element of doubt, that the inference of the fire is possible, but in presumption, the perceived non existence of the house leads to the presumption of an external existence only when it was thrown the fact of a man being alive into doubt and uncertainty. Kumarila, however, objects to this explanation of Prabhakar and says it that if the fact that Devadatta is made doubtful by the absence of Devadatta at his house, then the doubt may as well be removed by the supposition that Devadatta is dead. For it does not follow that doubt with regards to the life of Devadatta should necessarily be resolved by the supposition of his being outside the house. Doubt can only be removed when the cause of the root of doubt is removed. And it does not follow that because Devdatta is not in the house, therefore he is living. If it was already known that Devdatta was living and his absence from the house creates the doubt, how then can the very fact which creates the doubt remove the doubt? The cause of doubt cannot be the cause of removal of cause of its removal too. The real procedure of presumption is quite the other way. The doubt about the life of Devdatta being removed by previous knowledge or by some other means may we may presume that he must be outside the house when he is found absent from the house. So there can be any doubt about the life. So there can be any doubt about the life of Devdatta. It is certainty of his life associated with the presumption of his absence from the house that leads us to the presumption of external existence. There is an opposition between the life of Devadatta and his absence from the house, and the mind cannot come to rest without the presumption of his external existence. The mind oscillates between two contradictory poles, both of which it accepts but cannot reconcile, and as a result of that finds an outlet and reconciliation of in the presumption that existence of Devadatta must be found outside the house. इसमें दो चीजें आप देख सकते हैं. पहला, एट द टाइम जब ये थ्योरी लिखी गई होगी, उस टाइम पे many people would accept the fact that this world is kaleidoscopic. आज मैं जिंदा हूं, कल मर सकता हूं. आज अभी क्या है दैट इज डिफरेंट, आगे क्या होने वाला है दैट इज कंप्लीटली डिफरेंट. तो इसलिए बोला कि घर पे नहीं है तो क्या पता मर ना गया. हाउ आजकल अगर आप बोलेंगे इस चीज को तो वो तो काफी एग्रेसिव वे में ले लिया जाएगा, बट नहीं, जस्ट बोला गया है कि अगर वो घर पे नहीं, क्या वो मर गए हैं? नहीं. क्या वो बाहर है? हो सकता है, क्योंकि मोस्ट प्रोबेबली अगर घर पे नहीं होंगे तो बाहर होंगे, बिकॉज दैट पर्सन इज अ सोशल बीइंग. बिकॉज दैट पर्सन इज अ सोशल बीइंग, तो इसीलिए ये बोला गया है कि क्योंकि वो घर पे नहीं है तो वो बाहर है, और अगर वो घर पे नहीं है, बाहर है, तो हम ये फाइल को नेगेट कर देते हैं. देयर इज अ लीस्ट पॉसिबिलिटी दैट ही इज नॉट अलाइव. देयर इज मोर पॉसिबिलिटी दैट ही इज actually outside the house and living somewhere else. Hmm. Well, then, if that be so, the inference may as well be interpreted as presumption. For we say that we know that that wherever there is smoke, there is fire, and then perceive that there is smoke in the hill but no fire. Then the existence of smoke becomes irreconcilable, yeah, or the universal proposition of the concomitance of smoke and the fire becomes false, and hence the presumption that there is fire in the hill. This would have been all right if the universal concomitance of smoke with fire could be known otherwise than by inference. But this is not so, for the concomitance was seen only in individual cases, and for that came the inference that wherever there is smoke, there is fire. It cannot be said that concomitance perceived in individual cases suffered any contradiction without the presumption of the universal proposition. Wherever there is smoke, there is fire. Thus, arthapatti is of no avail here, and inference has to be accepted. Now, when it is proved that there are cases where the purpose of inference cannot be served by arthapatti, the validity of inference as a means of proof becomes established. That being done, we admit that knowledge of fire in the hill may come to us either by inference or by arthapatti. So inference also cannot serve the purpose of arthapatti. For the inference also it is the hetu, reason, which is known first, and later on from the sadhya, what is to be proved. Both of them, however, cannot be apprehended at the same moment, and it is exactly this that distinguish arthapatti from anumana. अर्थपत्ति और अनुमान में डिफरेंस ये है कि अर्थपत्ति में टू मोस्ट कंसिडरेबल थिंग्स आप देख रहे हैं जो आपके पहले भी पॉसिबल. अनुमान में आप जस्ट अनुमान लगा रहे हैं, राइट. बोथ ऑफ देम हाउ कैन नॉट बी अप्रीहेंडेड एट द सेम टाइम, the same moment, and it is exactly this distinguishes arthapatti from so inference also cannot serve the purpose of arthapatti. For in inference also it is the hetu, reason, which is known first, and later on from the sadhya, what is to be proved. यानी कि अगर कोई आपके घर पे आया नया, तो आप बाहर चप्पलें देख रहे हैं, तो आप इन्फेरेंस है और इन्फेरेंस के बेसिस पे अनुमान लगा रहे हैं। यहाँ पे आपके पास कोई इन्फेरेंस नहीं है, यहाँ पे बस ये है कि वो चीज़ एग्जिस्ट नहीं कर रही घर पे। जैसे वो जो इंसान जिससे आप देवदत्त जिससे आप मिलने गए थे, वो घर पे है नहीं, ये दैट पर्सन इज नॉट एग्जिस्टेंट इन दैट केस, इन दैट वेरी पर्टिकुलर केस। तो इसमें अर्थपत्ति आएगा, दैट इज द ओनली डिफरेंस। फॉर अर्थपत्ति टेक्स प्लेस वेयर without the presumption of Devdatta's external existence, the absence from the house of Devdatta who is living cannot be comprehended. If Devdatta is living, he must exist inside or outside the house. The mind cannot swallow a contradiction, and hence, without presuming the external existence of Devdatta, even the perceived non-existence cannot be comprehended. It is thus that the contradiction is resolved by presuming his existence outside the house. Arthapatti is thus the result of Arthanupapatti, or the contradiction of the presence perception with a previously acquired certain knowledge. It is by this Arthapatti Pramana that we have to admit that there is a special potency in seeds by which they produce the shoots, and that a special potency is believed to exist in sacrifices, by which these can lead the sacrificer to heaven or some such beneficent state of existence. It is by this Arthapatti Pramana that we have to admit that there is a special potency in seed by which they produce the shoots. यानी कि कुछ तो पोटेंसी होगी सीड्स में कि वो शूट्स रूट सारा निकाल रहा है, एंड दैट ए स्पेशल पोटेंसी इज बिलीव टू एग्जिस्ट इन सैक्रिफाइसेस। अगर आप अच्छे तरीके से सैक्रिफाइसेस कर रहे हो, by which these can lead to sacrifices to heaven or some such beneficial state of the existence. इसमें heaven बोला है, मुक्ति नहीं बोला है। तो मुक्ति हम शायद व्हाट यू कॉल भगवद गीता में देख चुके हैं, राइट। चलिए गाइस, आज के लिए इतना ही। अब हमारा क्या रह गया, आई थिंक कल का लाइव आई कैन प्लान लिट बिट लॉन्गर, या तो फिर शाम को लाइव करने का ट्राई करते हैं, जिसमें कल मीमांसा फिलॉसफी मैं आपका कवर करवा दूंगा। मीमांसा फिलॉसफी कवर करने के बाद शंकर स्कूल ऑफ वेदांत, यानी कि वेदों का अंत के बाद, वेदास के एंड टाइम पे क्या क्या फिलॉसफी थी वो। इट वॉज नाउ डेज थोड़ी शॉर्ट क्लास कर दी गई है, क्योंकि लोगों को था कि ज़्यादा बड़ी क्लास, बट मुझे तो बड़ा लंबी क्लास में ही मज़ा आता। कोई बात नहीं, विल डू अ बिगर क्लास टुमारो। आई होप यू लाइक दिस वीडियो। इफ यू लाइक दिस वीडियो, प्लीज़ काइंडली लाइक, शेयर एंड सब्सक्राइब माई चैनल। जय श्री राम।